West of What is a round-table conversation inspired by Mother Earth's call for more landwork ceremonies to happen. This is a podcast where spirituality lands into politics, history, culture, and more because land is where we all meet. We want to know how we can come into greater connection with the land and each other, and how we can all move forward with integrity. We believe the answers and solutions will come from many voices, from the truths that happen inside of our togetherness. Hello and welcome to West of What. I am so excited to say that we have the amazing Steve Nobel with us today. He was the director of a spiritual non-for-profit organization called Alternatives for 13 years. He is an author of 6 non-fiction books, and he has created a library of meditations and transmissions and other tracks that can be accessed on his website and his YouTube channel, which is The Soul Matrix, which I've got to say is just an amazing resource for starseeds and light workers. And it's phenomenal what Steve has done. And he always, and yet when you speak to him and you meet him, he's so humble and so heart-centered and so inspirational as a human being, as well as this amazing body of work that he has done for all of us. And so I'm very, very honored to have him. The intention for today's show is that you are touched by your soul.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, thank you
so
for coming on.
Thank you. And eventually I come on a bit late, but there we are.
We had to wait for you.
Have you seen that Lord of the Rings quote? Wizards are never late. They're always here at the perfect time. Do you remember that line?
You were worth the wait. We're so
thank
you. I was about to tell you why I invited you on the show. Other than that, I feel like you have so much knowledge and so much wisdom and so much to share. But what prompted me to invite you on the show is I read a post you shared about Palestine.
Oh,
and everything you've shared about Palestine has been so eloquent and so beautiful. And one of the reasons I wanted you on the show is because there's this massive divide in opinion in the awake community at the moment about whether we should put our energy and attention toward the things that are going on in the world, or whether we shouldn't, and we should not speak about it and not put our energy into it. And it, I know that it's creating, massive upset and pain for people, that the spiritual community are not saying anything and not doing anything. And I really wanted to, I guess, ask you why you're in the camp of no, we have to speak and we have to talk about these things going on in the world and to address that.
Yeah. Well, I think, I have a particular passion for Gaza for various reasons, because there's lots of wars going on and lots of things happening. And we could go down many rabbit holes. So we have to choose the rabbit hole. If we do choose to go down a rabbit hole, the one we go down. And going back a bit, I think for me, the fall of the Twin Towers was a kind of wake up call of, I was in the love and light totally, the world's lovely. There are unicorns dancing in the higher planes, and then the Twin Towers fell. And I was like, okay. But I felt it before they fell, actually. I was walking in shock down Stoke Newington. I don't know if you know Stoke Newington. I lived in Stoke Newington in London. I remember walking in shock going, what's going on? And I feel I'm shocked about something. It's almost I felt it, and then I found, and this was before it actually happened, a few hours before it happened, I think, or I can't remember how many hours, but I felt this shock, and then I realized what happened, and that woke me up to looking at what I consider the dark side. You know, if you look at the Star Wars thing, the light side and the dark, the Jedi's are waking up and protecting, and then there's the dark side. And wind forward to where we are now, and then there's what's going on in Palestine, and I look at the spiritual community, and there's a great silence from or most of the spiritual teachers I know. No one says a word on social media. It's all, come to my event, or there's love and light here, or let me, whatever. And this silence really struck me, and I started speaking out. But at the same time of speaking out, I realized that, and I got lots of messages from people kind of attacking me from speaking out, from the kind of pro one side, anti-terrorists, they're terrorists, and all of that. And so I would, I mean, I had to block a couple of people because they were just like so fixed in their story. So, but my, while I was doing it, what I was doing was also processing my own outrage about what's going on, but not allowing that outrage to get into the post too much. I wanted the post to be more about peace as far as possible, but it didn't always work out. Sometimes the outrage kind of took over, like this is so wrong. But as far as possible, I was processing my own stuff about it. And the reason why I felt that Gaza situation was so important was because when I look at the dark side, and you know what I mean by the dark side on the planet.
Please tell us.
Okay, the dark side for me are the kind of real controllers of the planet, who have been the invisible controllers for a long time, who have been the ones, the wizards behind the curtains, like the Wizard of Oz, pulling the levers, and don't look at, but now Toto's pulling the curtain, and these wizards pulling the strings, which are kind of the super wealthy group of the world.
We refer to them as the 1% on this show.
Oh, okay. Some people call them the elite, which is not the right word, is it? Yeah, the 1% is very kind. I think it's nice to be kind to them as well. So all of the threads, most of the threads lead back to, for me in the world, a lot of what's gone on recently in the last 20 years lead back to one country, actually. I see a lot of it going back politically, financially, all the threads lead back to one country involved in that terrible situation. And now there's a lot of I would say star seeds in Israel, for example. I know there are a lot of star seeds there, but I don't know how many of them have woken up truly to what their government are doing. And it might be a case like in Germany in the in the lead up to World War II. There was a kind of sweeping of people towards the whole Nazi party, and but there was also, when a lot of the stuff was going on, people were turning a blind eye or not knowing what was going on. I think, from what I understand, the camps and everything. And but I wonder in Israel, because it's much harder in Israel for people not to know because of social media, whereas in World War II, people may not have known because there was no Instagram and stuff. So now I wonder, it's either because what I realize that Israel is carrying is a lot of trauma from World War II. And that trauma, I think, has been manipulated.
I 100% agree with you. I feel like I was saying this to somebody the other day, that in a way, it's the collective example of why it's so important for us to do the work. Because if we do not do the work on our trauma, then our trauma is what is used and what is weaponized, actually.
Yeah.
We're seeing it not just in Israel, we're seeing it in all forms of fascism and militarization that happen, and elite, all sorts of things. That what they harness is the trauma of the past to take us away from our our humanity, to take us
Yeah.
our present, to keep us, essentially our trauma pushes the soul out of the body, right?
Yeah.
And when the soul's in the body, you cannot not be betrothed and beloved to all other human beings.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think we're seeing a collective trauma manifestation.
Yeah. I've had, well, it's a case of, I suppose, on a personal level, someone can grow up in a very abusive family and become a very caring, loving person.
Mhm.
Or someone can grow up in the same family and become an abuser. I'm not quite sure of the mechanics of that, but it may well be the kind of level of consciousness that came into the lifetime with. But I'm sure there are a lot of high frequency souls in Israel, and if I ever get contacted by them, I would encourage them gently. It has to be a gentle process, of course, but actually, I'm messaged more by Americans, so I'm thinking I'm more focusing on America really. And I'll give you an example of what happened recently. Someone sent me a reel on Instagram, and this guy was saying, these reels which are like like, look at this, listen to this. And this guy was saying that all of the attention on Gaza was to pull people away from the real agenda, which was basically the Arabs wanting to take over the world.
Oh
And
God.
I, I listened to half of it before I messaged back to her saying, someone in America, a spiritual teacher actually. And I said, well, thank you for sending me the reel, but it is all BS. And she messaged back saying, well, I really appreciate your work. And so why is it BS? And so I told her why it was BS, really. If anyone does any research, it's amazing that people don't even do any research, that in the last 20, 25 years, more than 1 million people have been killed in Arab Islamic countries, Yemen, Iraq, all of these, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria. And so I said to her, look, imagine that 1 million people killed, all this displacement, which is why we're experiencing the migrant problem. Imagine it was reversed and, Arab countries was attacking the West and killed 1 million people. What would you say? And she just kind of gave me some emojis. Thank you so much. I'm like, well, what I think is really obvious is not obvious to people, clearly, because of the propaganda that's going on.
Do you think that people are hypnotized?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And distracted. I love history because I think history is really important to teach us many things. And you've only got to look at the Roman Empire and bread and circus.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fabulous strategy, which is going on today. If you give people enough entertainment, distraction, and you give them enough of the basic needs, they'll not rebel. You put on a lot, and a lot of the celebrities, I look at them thinking, but you're doing the work of the dark force. You're keeping people distracted. And not all of them, of course. Some films are brilliant and they wake people up, but a lot of it put people to sleep.
Yeah, I think a strategy for many years, which has proven to be true, was if you can control the media, then you can control the news, then you can control how people think. And before the internet has become what it is now, people only got the information from the TV and the newspaper, and all of it was controlled propaganda. So it was very easy for people to get brainwashed, and a lot of people fell for it. And they're not really to blame because people just put so much trust in their government and news, and they're not to necessarily expect it to work against them. But now with the freedom of information and internet, we're really starting to see now, and people are really starting to wake up now. I think internet, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, but it's exposed people to so much more truth, and people are starting to see it now. And it almost is at a point now where if you can't start to see what's going on now after them constantly doing the same play, then there's probably a bit of an issue there. But like the older generation, my parents and stuff, who were actually very, very open, it was tough for them, because they've just grown up from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, just believing everything that came out of the TV. So it's hard to accept that you've been lied to and manipulated to all that time.
I suppose. I mean, I was born in 1957. I know I look terribly young, but I was actually, I'm actually 60. I was in Bosnia. I was 68th birthday, and I was grown up in, yeah. I grew up in like, no internet, no computers, and I had to, teach myself. I'm pretty good with the internet and everything.
I want to come to what you said about the great silence in spirituality, because
Yeah.
part of the reason that this podcast was birthed is because I was in Egypt being challenged by people who were speaking about the fact that the Western spiritual community was saying nothing,
Yeah.
doing nothing. And, I'm curious about what I've spoken to so many people, and there's this belief in modern day spirituality, which I would call it frequency activism, that is about, we've got to raise the vibration, we've got to think positively, we're energizing the war if we talk about the war. And I think that is one of the things that is stopping people from speaking up. I think there's also another thing where people they don't know how, they don't know what to say. But I'm just wondering what your viewpoint is. And
well, yes, you're absolutely right. It's a good point, actually, because I totally subscribe to we create our reality individually and collectively. And, if someone is focusing on negativity endlessly, they're going to generate it and allow it and attract it and magnet in their life, that kind of thing. And I kind of get it, at a personal level. And a lot of people come into spirituality and go, "What? I can change my life. I can change how I feel. I can do affirmations. I can feel amazing." And so a lot of people go there. And then when something negative happens, they're still in that current. And I think what happens is that you go down that current so far that you get enough internal strength that you can actually then look at things which are dark with awareness and not be, it's not that darkness is bringing you down. Your light is kind of hoping to, because awareness is really important in the world. We can be spiritual people with our heads in the sands, and we can have a lovely feeling. We can feel wonderful, go through the day feeling love and light. But actually, people are being bombed and killed around us. And that's not really, if you think of all the real masters of the planet, Christ and Buddha, the two that I would really resonate with, both of them really got political, very quick, or Christ was being pulled into, when they were trying to trick him and pull him into political. And he was very adept at, moving that way. But they wanted him to be the one who's going to lead the revolution. And of course, he wasn't doing that, but he was speaking out about things which are important. And the Buddha stood in front of a battlefield of two, armies converging and stopped it.
really?
Now he did. Yeah. So, people look at Buddhism and they, but he was radically against the caste system. He broke down the caste. It was just, this is not right, So I think there comes to be a spiritual maturity where you can start speaking out, but you have to do it at a place where you are not so. If you are deeply shaken, it's hard to speak out. For example, if I am really angry about something, then I can't really speak out. I have to sit with it and process it and go, what can I say about this now? And it doesn't always work with Palestine, because I know I'd see something, I go, oh my God, and I knew that I was deeply troubled by it. More than, for something like more than Ukraine or Sudan or these other places. Somehow that seems to me a really important thing that the world says no to, because there's, it's dehumanizing people to such an extent that it will create a kind of global numbness, I would think. Do you know what I mean? That if we can kind of go, oh, well, that's fine, they got blown to bits and loads of kids got blown up, but we're still reading our spiritual books and we're having a great time, or partying in the West Indies or something. I think that would be really difficult in terms of the global ascension, because we've got to kind of embrace the light and the dark, and not to be afraid of the dark or be angry with the dark. I mean, I say that, but I still do feel angry about Gaza. So I'm not 100% there, really. But I'm kind of still working on it. And it's actually really good for me to look at it and go, oh my God. And where does it twang all those places in me, as you said, where I've been traumatized, or in other lifetimes, because it would touch something, or even for Jewish people looking at it, I imagine the Holocaust would touch something, and they might go, "What? No, it's not happening," or whatever's going on. But if we have the strength to look at it, we can heal, I think.
And healing, all healing requires looking.
Yes.
The self-work journey, it requires you to look at the thing that you need to look at. And I think for me, it's like the higher frequency activism is also integrity. And collectively, while this is happening to our brothers and our sisters, we are out of integrity. So any high frequencies are not in integrity until all lands are in integrity.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, it's just a frequency that isn't embodied. It can't be embodied while this is happening on the ground level.
Yeah. We are what people talk about oneness and oneness, but except for them, we're one human family, but we'll ignore them because we're having a good time. They are part of the one human family, and what we do to them or what we allow to happen to them, we do to ourselves. We are causing ourselves harm if we know what's going on and we turn a blind eye. At some level, there'll be a kind of guilt, I think, initiated, and I think at personal level, I have a strategy which I call throwing a tin can down an alley, which is, and what I mean by that is, for a client, for example, let's say I work with clients, and there's an issue, and what I'll tend to do is throw a tin can down the alley and see if there are any dogs hiding that want to come out and bark. And I'd say to them, this is a bit of a devil's advocate thing, but I want to just test something. And if something resonates, oh my God, I do feel that, then I know, well, there we are. That's when we need to go to clear that, heal that. Because the further we go in frequency, the more old programs get activated. You must have found that. Other lifetime stuff, ancestral stuff. When we're asleep, I've got two brothers who are like, hey, what's going on? Why all the stuff? Why not just enjoy life? Have a pina colada on the beach. What's wrong? But I'm like, I'm the one dealing with all the ancestral stuff, not them. They're and one of my brothers is a medium. He goes to spiritual church and sees Auntie Jane and Uncle Bob. But at this level, he just doesn't get it, because the higher you go, the deeper you go, the more gets triggered and the more shit you have to dig out, of the spiritual channels. Am I right to say shit? You did say I could say that before.
We believe that we believe the medicine is everything that needs to be said being said.
Yeah, good. So digging the shit out of the trenches is part of the deal. Sorry to all the Love and Light Brigade. And I there's a time for love and light, but there's a time for digging out the shit of the trenches as well. And both can go on at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive, really.
And you know what? My guides gave a really good description of love and light this summer. They said, love is potential and light is truth. And if you are not, and they said it's a code, and they were like, if you are not speaking the truth, then how are you serving the light?
Yeah.
Like, and they said, if you're speaking the truth without love, then you're not creating any change because you need the energy of potential inside that truth. And if all you're doing is speaking the truth, then all you're doing is affirming how things are at the moment. But if you are speaking the truth with the potential, then you're helping the truth move forward. And that's true love and light work. And they were like, love without truth is a lie. So you can lie if you want.
Yeah.
But, and one of the things I love about the posts that you share is I feel like they have both truth and potential in them. And I feel like they have an incredible knowledge of trauma within them as well, because a lot of people that share stuff on social media, and I'm actually not that big a sharer of stuff on social media because I feel like a platform like this is better.
Yeah.
I just find it re-traumatizing. A picture of a dead child isn't going to send anybody into action.
No.
Because it's just going to traumatize them. It's just going to make them freeze. And I feel like you're one of the few people that when you post, you move people's hearts. And I really want to acknowledge and celebrate that, because there aren't many people that are actually living love and light like you are in the world of social.
Thank you. The check's in the post, Kahreela.
No, it's true. It's true. It's the posts are so big. You do these beautiful pictures, these really heart-led statements that are telling the truth, but are also opening people's hearts, and not just affirming how things are or not, which is what most people are doing when it comes.
Yeah, I know. Well, a lot of the pictures I know people are against AI, but I do like a lot of. There's an AI platform called Midjourney, which I started using, and when I tuned into the consciousness of the platform, it felt pretty clear, like a neutral, clear crystal. But the community around it felt not like that. They felt like they're processing all their, some of the images they're creating are like, oh God, what's in your unconscious mind that you create that? So I started to create a series of images of a young woman or a young or a teenage girl sitting in the rubble of Gaza holding a flower. I created different parts of that. And here's this, the tragedy of families being killed or their homes blown up. And here's a girl holding a flower. I think the last one I did, holding a white flower, I think, in the rubble of Gaza. So it just, these are people too, with families and children, with the same basic human caring for children. And, just as a family in Israel would care for their children, or in England or in America, these people also deeply care for their children. And I've been following, I've seen a lot of and I have to limit what I can see, because I can't see too much. If I see too much of the trauma, it traumatizes. So I see enough to remind me, and then I'll scroll past going, I don't want to ignore it, but I can't see anymore. But there's one particular guy on Instagram that I follow. What's his name? Uncle Tito, I think his name is called. He's a clown in Gaza. And he gets all these children and he does these most amazing things with them. I just sent him some money, actually, because, people say, hey, I'm starving in Gaza, send me money. And I don't, because I don't know them. But this guy I know, so I sent him money. And I thought, this guy should get a Nobel Peace Prize. Not this woman in South America who, I don't know if you know about her, but
who definitely doesn't deserve a Nobel Peace. I don't know very much about her, but I have a friend who's a total activist, and she was like, I would prefer Trump to get the Nobel Peace Prize over this woman.
Yeah, because at least the world would laugh about it if Trump got it. Whereas this woman's kind of unknown, and basically a kind of unknown Zionist, which was interesting. Like, of all the women coming out now, they could have given it to a number of women who were really speaking. That Italian woman, I forget her name now, the Albanese something, or I mean, even Greta. Greta's a bit of a mixed character, but even her lately, she's just incredibly courageous what she's doing.
Yeah,
and
true.
then others like her that are really up for it, but it's too politically difficult for them to do it, actually.
And also, I'm sorry, but a prize for peace is everything that's wrong with our consciousness right now anyway.
Yeah.
Why are we a prize for peace when you actually zone out of that? It's madness.
Yeah.
It's madness. Peace should be at the forefront of every village and every, like, it should be something that is part of our humanity, not something that we give a prize to.
I know. That prize came out of guilt, because the family were working on munitions, made money through munitions, and suddenly I think the guide must have had a revelation, decided to ease his conscience, and created a peace prize after creating munitions for years. So I think the prize came out of a sense of guilt. But hey, in the 3D world, I think at least it showed they valued something, of importance. But yeah, you're right. But yeah.
Does the Nobel Peace Prize, like, when was the last time that actually held some substance? Like, has it actually gone to someone, quite deserving for a while? Because I mean, it even went to Barack Obama, and I think he dropped 12,000 bombs a year in his 8 years. So that's a lot of bombs.
Yeah,
I think he was around 100,000 bombs in his term. So that doesn't sound like someone who's worthy of a peace prize.
yeah.
So yeah, when was the last time that actually possibly went to someone deserving of it?
I don't know, but I do remember hearing that Obama was the only prize winner who bombed another Nobel Prize winner. I
Yeah,
can't remember who he bombed. Was it the Medicine with Beyond Frontiers or something? He bombed them. I'm like,
yeah,
well, and I liked, I want, no, I liked Obama, and then I wanted to like him, and I'm like, oh, Obama, why? Why were you part of the dark also? Sorry, but
Do you think that they buy out? My opinion is that in the end they have to buy their way in. Maybe not just with money.
yeah, I don't know. Some of them may be kind of, what could you say? They're kind of they're raised for their role. You
Mhm.
know, I wonder when I look at Bush and Obama, is it a good cop, bad cop thing? Is it like, because Obama was such a great, wonderful, inspiring hope. The books, Yes, We Can, and there was a whole wave of possibility. But looking at Obama, from what I know now, he was just as much part of the dark, but with a veneer of you couldn't help but love him in a way, but what he was actually doing was not great, really.
yeah.
And
He portrayed himself as a very nice person, a very good speaker, but behind the scenes, he was a tyrant. He bombed seven countries and literally like 100,000 bombs. So in no world is that a nice person. And you could argue who's dropping it on people who, they claim that they were liberating them, but a lot of innocent people died. And if you speak to the locals there, they weren't necessarily unhappy with some of the people leading there. And they're the world police, and it's like in any other country, it's no one's business what happens in there, and it's no one's right to step into their country and take control. And they managed to spin this propaganda to get funding to constantly do this, even though they're funding them with weapons to keep the war going. It's a very, very corrupt industry.
yeah, I think, in America, one of the last presidents who wasn't totally influenced by the Zionist government, because, the Zionists are totally influential in American politics and British politics, actually. The
Yeah.
last one I heard speak out, whether you love him or hate him, was Nixon. He did a public speech going, I am not going to be influenced by these guys. I am not taking their money, because if I take their money, then they'll start telling me what to do. He made a public speech about this, Nixon. Now, I know Nixon's a mixed character for his own reasons, but
Yeah.
ever since him, I think it's been a growing influence in America and Britain, and probably a lot of other countries of, in America it's APAC. In England, there are other financial organizations. For example, the British government, I think the cabinet, I think half are financed or backed by Zionist donors,
It's a lot. I think it's more than half. I think it's like 70% or something like that.
something
It's
like that. And
yeah.
so, of
Yeah.
course, if you ask Starmer and the other guy, they'll all say there is no G word. It doesn't exist. They're asked, is there a genocide? And no, there's no genocide. And that the leader of the Conservative Party was also asked, and she said, no, no, there is no genocide. Both sides have been influenced. So whoever gets in, it's who's pulling the strings, and those strings, as I said at the beginning, all lead back to the Zionist government and all whoever else is involved with them. They all lead back there,
And
which is
Yeah.
I really want to say that this is not, I think it's so important to say that when we're talking about this is nothing to do with Judaism. like
nothing to do with that.
like
Yeah,
nobody is against Jewish people or Judaism. This is about the 1% and
yeah,
people that are pulling the strings and actually tarnishing the name of Judaism
yeah.
and all of our names, because it is happening in all of our names.
And that program is a deliberate program to merge. If you criticize Zionism, you're criticizing all the Jews in the world. That's deliberate, which is why you said that, which is necessary to say that, because people go, well, if you criticize the government, you're criticizing the whole Jewish people, aren't you? And it's like, well, if I criticize the British government, I am not criticizing the whole British people or any other government. But if you think about Israel and Jewish people, they've been so merged in our minds. Now I've got a very one person in my family, probably the most intelligent, the most successful. I said to him something about the Zionist government, and he said that's anti-Semitic. And I said, no,
Yeah.
me saying something about the government of Israel is not anti-Semitic. And he argued, and he's a very intelligent guy. He argued, blew in the face. Yes, it is. I can't believe you said that, you know. And so this is the difficulty, because if people say anything about Zionism, there is automatically this kind of whole Holocaust and the Jewish people and all of their trauma comes in going, how dare you attack, or how dare you? And even for Jewish people listening to this, a lot of people have in their own mind separated their own religion, their own identity from that government, right-wing extremist government, in my view, that should be hopefully eventually will be brought down, hopefully.
And the war is between, and this is not my quote, it's a comedian's quote, but it is between all of us and them.
Yeah.
You know, the war is between everybody and the 1%. That is the only war that is happening on this planet right now.
Yeah. And that 1% are also active in other places, not just in the Zionists, but they're really focused there, and in America because of various reasons. And I worked in the City of London, and so you'll feel the vibe there as well. I worked in the City of London for 10 years, and it's got a very reptilian feel. And so, you know, Kahreela, what I mean by that. Some people listen to this go, well, what are you talking about? But a lot of the manipulation of this planet is not even human manipulation. It comes from another level of manipulation, I feel.
I want to talk about that, actually, because we're talking about we're deep in the matrix right now. We're talking about the matrix, of third dimension. And your business is called the Soul Matrix.
Yeah.
What is the matrix and what is the soul matrix?
What is the matrix and what is the soul matrix? Something just popped up to interfere. Some interference just happened then on my screen. Okay, so I think we're living, you know, when I saw the film The Matrix, I thought this is genius, really. So, someone very enlightened wrote this, the first one, not the... I know it's been attributed to the Walensky brothers, but I think there was another woman who really wrote, who won a court case apparently and said she wrote it. So the first film was really genius, really. And I think in a way there are parallels between what's going on in our world and that film. Not that there are, you know, things in the sewers chasing spaceships or anything like that, but, you know, just the essence of it. That there are people waking up, you know, the blue pill, red pill thing, great metaphor, isn't it? You know, there are people who take the blue pill. They just want to stay asleep in this matrix, and that matrix is being formed by frequency, by all the inputs. You know, the political, military, media, all these inputs that keep us in a controlled environment, which goes, well, basically, this is the world that I think is happening around me, that is being blasted all the time. This normal world where everything is, you know, 9 to 5 or whatever it is, whatever the normal world is, or stress or whatever it is. But then when you take the red pill, there's a kind of, maybe the world I see around me is not the world I thought was there. Maybe I live in a different world. Maybe there's a different level of possibility that wasn't available to me in the blue pill world. You know, so when people start waking up, there's things start coming on like, what do you mean, Steve? Okay, what do you mean, Steve? Okay. Intuition starts coming, psychic abilities start coming online. Well, why is that important? You know, who cares? Well, you know, in this volatile world, your internal GPS, inner intuition, your connection to something higher, for me, for example, and for a lot of people, is guiding me through a volatile world, because, you know, the world's becoming more volatile. The old matrix is wobbling, you know, you must know, it's kind of shimmering and wobbling, and we're starting to, it's blipping.
I'm referring to it as, it's like it's an old person with dementia and we're about to take the car keys off them. Like, we're that far from the point where it's like you no longer get the keys to drive.
Yeah, and the car keys we get actually fits a spaceship beyond the garden. We can go and go and fly off somewhere. So the world is changing, and so the world that most people think is there, which is like humanity is the center of the universe. There's nothing else around. There are no other dimensions of anything. You know, if you talk to trees, you're completely balmy. I talk to trees all the time. So I remember I used to. I've got four granddaughters, and they're all various ages. And when the older two were young, I used to take them and talk to trees, go for walks in the forest, and they'd say, "Granddad, where are we?" I say, "Well, let's stop and just connect to the trees and talk to them." They said, "Granddad, we don't know how to do that. You do." So I said to them, tongue in cheek, "Look, don't they teach you in school how to talk to trees?" They went, "No." And I was just having a bit of laugh with them, because, they look at me as kind of slightly an oddity, doing things which is not normal in the mutant matrix, in the normal 3D in the world. And I'm sure, I don't know how your families are, but if your families are in that old matrix, they're looking at you with kind of eyes like, "We love you." Hopefully they love you, but they kind of don't get you. You're a bit strange, but hey, we kind of accept your strangeness because we love you. Maybe that goes on. That can go on. It goes on in my family. They know because I'm very public how strange I am. But they don't listen to anything because it's too strange. It's just, oh no. But they see the YouTube channel and they see the Instagram, and they go, "Oh, something's." And the other thing which happened was really interesting. My grandchildren, the two older ones, in primary school, my daughter's best friend's husband was following me on YouTube, and that was like freaky. Oh, and then those two they're now in secondary school, and they were given a project of write a project about someone famous in your family. So who do you think they wrote about? Me.
Yay.
Granddad. The teacher followed me on Instagram or on YouTube, and that freaked them out. "Oh my God, the teacher follows him. What's going on?" And I was walking along Brighton seafront with my son and daughter-in-law and one of my granddaughters, and someone stopped me going, "Oh my God, it's you. I can't believe it." And they were like, is he famous? And so their idea of me is kind of expanded, but they still can't look too much because there's still too much in the old matrix, And the old matrix and the new matrix really became apparent. I don't know how you feel about this, but in the global lockdown, I know it's another area of people and spiritual people being totally silent or being angry and getting shut down by Big Brother, which that happened a lot. I actually worked in this spiritual organization for many years. I was a director for many years. And when the lockdown finished, that organization put in place something which asked for, to attend a live event, you have to show that you're negatively tested or you've got a vaccine passport thing. I messaged them just saying, "What's happening? What are you doing?" And I got a kind of pleasant message back, but I understand it really pissed them off that I even asked the question. So if they're watching this, I love you, but and then I just bowed out because I just wanted to ask the question. It wasn't an aggressive question. It was just like, why are you doing it? Why are you asking people for this? People are emailing me asking me why is this organization doing this? Anyway, they got really upset. So that kind of broke my connection with them, which was in a positive way because I needed to move on. I was kind of still, trying to love them, and
I'm glad you touched on that because, you're very brave, Steve.
Thank you.
You're doing the work that a lot of people, I think, are scared to do, which is speaking up, being political, asking questions. And I got from the pandemic, at least, that the reason people were scared was because they were scared of it's always the same fear in us humans, really. It's the fear of our tribe abandoning us.
Yeah.
And that happened to you. This big part of your path and your life abandoned you by the sounds of it.
Yeah. Well, that was a break. I'd already left the organization, but that was the break. I knew the positive way was I need to move on and focus on my own work because we were very friendly. I'd go and have tea with them and everything, and that broke it really, which was fine because they need maybe to break the past as well with me. They're doing very well, but that was just one thing which I didn't agree with. But interestingly, how much do I say about this? One of the early speakers, all right, one of the early speakers after the lockdown ended, wrote a book on mind-body medicine, how the mind heals the body. And that person, I mean, I know him and he's a very well-known author and well-loved author, went on Facebook and publicly declared that he'd had his second jab. And then people were like, aren't you the guy who wrote that book on how your mind heals your body type of thing? And it created such a dissonance. I was just like, what world am I in?
Well, I know people, just to play the devil's advocate, I know people who literally tuned in, channeled, really felt like they were meant to. And I had an interesting bit of guidance come through that it was important that some people had the jab and were then going to take it to shadow work and ceremony and transmute it that way. And so, I kind of am of the thing that if you're truly listening and truly aligned and truly of service and you get the message to do it, then I respect. Do you see what I mean? I think if somebody feels like they know why they're doing it, then who are we to say not to?
Yeah.
Even though for me, I was like getting I was at the point where I said, I will die rather than have this. Like,
I was there with you, sister. I was with you.
My no was really strong, but I think that one of the things that we have a responsibility for at this time, because the thing is our leaders are not going to speak up. Our leaders are bought, and I believe they're bought with more than money, actually.
Sure.
So we can't trust our leaders to do this. And I think one of the things that I've learned from the pandemic, and indeed Palestine and Gaza as well, is that as a community, we have to not abandon each other. If we want other people to speak up, then we need them to feel safe to share their truth.
Yeah.
And it's almost like we need to learn how to be tribe to challenging truths.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's part of the medicine of this time. It's like, how can we stand in our truth and bring someone else to a round table?
Well, yeah, you're right. I think the pressure on people was so immense, and people have taken it in the spiritual community. And I think, they would say, well, I wanted to travel, or I was worried about my granny, or, and all of this kind of thing. I've met people recently who were saying that, and, I understand the pressure. But, I mean, maybe we disagree slightly on this or big time, but I remember a number of people publicly saying on social media, my higher self says that if you get it, you can transform it, transmute it. And I so disagreed with those statements. What you say privately to people is up to you, but to encourage people to take it is, I found was really, I disagreed with those people who did it. And I had a friend who was a spiritual teacher, and we met in Brighton, and she said to me, my higher self says I can take it and I can transmute it. And I said, well, okay, that's great. If that's what you get, fabulous. I met her 4 months later, and she said, well, I'm having a hysterectomy. A problem has occurred in my body. And I said to her, well, interference with the female reproductive system is one of the things that can do. And she was totally shocked. And she went forward and had her hysterectomy. Now, I didn't believe in, I don't just believe things, I have to go, well, I have to get it. So the spike protein shedding thing, you remember all of that?
I never believed in that.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't believe in it until I went to, Bexhill.
Yeah.
I went, there's a lot of old people in Bexhill, and I went for a restaurant with my then partner. And I started feeling my throat squeezing like this. And I'm like, what's going on? And afterwards, I thought, actually, I was being affected. I thought I was being affected. So I went and saw someone who cleared it, and I saw a health kinesiologist. So I think there was something in it. It was, but only in the company of about 40 old people. I was suddenly being beamed. I imagine all of them took this jab, and they kind of beamed, whatever. And I felt so that was my reason why I did think there was something in it, and I did, But again, I must say, in that time of the pandemic, I was afraid. I thought the dark side had somehow managed to that the whole world shut down. I thought this is incredibly. I never
Yeah.
saw it coming, and I thought that they've done a job, and I really started thinking, is the light going to win, or are they going to shut down the whole planet and keep us in? I kind of worried for a while. It took me. I did go into a bit of worry about it until kind of I went on a march in London, my one march, because I don't believe in going on marches, but I went on one. And it was the most incredible march. And there was 1 million people in London. And there's a drone that went over it and showed how many. I thought this was from Marble Arch to Parliament. And it was the most beautiful, wonderful, peaceful thing. It wasn't an angry thing at all. And all the police stepped back because you couldn't stop 1 million people moving. And I think that march did persuade the government in Britain to be a bit more lenient than other countries. So I think there is a power of people stepping out and saying no. That was the power of it.
There's something coming to my mind that because I was afraid at some points in that. And there was one moment we'd been deep in the lockdown for so long. And I think it was a time where you were allowed out, but you were not allowed out in groups. And it was vaccine time, And I remember me and some women did a ceremony. And I just had this moment. It was one of the moments that I really understood that there was a path out of the matrix that I hadn't thought of before. Suddenly I found myself calling upon our allies that were not of the human kingdom and just being like, we're in trouble. You need to help us. The humans are in prison. and it was the first time I'd ever truly called upon, even though I'd worked as a channel, it's the first time I'd ever truly been like tree spirits and fairies. And I was like, anyone in the other kingdoms, you need to come and help us. And it made me realize that why that moment was so significant is it made me realize that the matrix is only in the human kingdom. And that actually in the years that are coming, which for me are years of magical activism, we need to call on our non-human allies who are not in the matrix to come and help her.
Yeah.
And the reason I wanted to mention that is because I think, we've gone into kind of the crisis of leadership on this show and the force of the matrix that exists in our world and in our kingdom. And this show is partly created because we want to encourage people to come back into ceremony with the earth. And in doing so, make Mother Earth our leader rather than the mad kings.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you how can we come back into ceremony with the earth?
So I've just come back from Bosnia in the magical pyramids, and with a group of people. I was a participant. I just wanted to go there. And one of the opening ceremonies was we had to draw something, a symbol of something. And I drew this symbol. I didn't know what it meant. It was kind of spiral and this kind of upside down pyramid. It was a spiral above the pyramid. And then she put it on a board and she turned it the other way up. and it was like a spiral going up into a pyramid. It wasn't my intention. And then she said, because you all had to write what it meant, but I didn't know what it meant. And then she handed the ball back to me, said, you haven't written on it. And I wrote, the earth will show you the way. That's what came to me. The earth will show you. That was immediately came to me. While I was in Bosnia, I was not having a magical time initially, even though the group was wonderful. I felt this tremendous pressure on my head, and I felt a strong disconnection. I called a friend in London, in England, sorry, and she said to me, the main pyramid has got an energetic block above it, some way above it, and that block is alien. And I had a chat with her going, well, what do we do about this? And so in that chat, I created this process, which I started doing, of breaking through the block to open this pyramid. And immediately this clearing went, this thing went in my head. I got the whole group to do it. Fortunately, they were up for it. And we all did this process together. There was 14 of us with this pyramid, opening and activating the pyramid. And this pyramid, that's a whole another episode, these pyramids. But the next day, the Gaza peace deal was kind of coming. Everyone was celebrating. And I had the feeling, because what she said to me, the awakening of this one pyramid will shift the whole planet. And I think that just that work I did and the group did started to shift the whole planet. This pyramid is so powerful. It's bigger than the one in Egypt. It's really, I'm going to go back probably many times, this pyramid. It's really important for the whole planet. So here we have this pyramid, which is covered in green and everything. Although I met the guy who was working on these pyramids, and he told me there's scientific proof that these pyramids were made 30,000 years ago. They got a leaf between these two blocks on the side, and they sent it off to a laboratory for carbon dating. It came back at 30,000 years ago, which is far older than our history, that we think of. But the tunnels connected to it were all closed around 5,000 years ago. And there is a boulder in the tunnels with runes inscribed on it.
I've seen it.
Let me read you the quote that they translated this, and when I heard it, I'm like, oh my God. And this was when they closed the pyramid and all the tunnels. And it was translated by an American professor. And she said, it translates as, the gateway is closed. We are at a standstill. We have to act as warriors to defend and conquer until we can move again through the Stargate. They found that in the tunnel. That was left behind by the people who closed it 5,000 years ago. They closed it.
Wow.
It was created 30,000 years ago. And to be honest, the closing process is so involved. You see the tunnels that they've got. These people 5,000 years ago must have spent years and years closing these tunnels. It's just an incredible job they did. They did it for a reason, to close this Stargate. And now we're at a period. This is the guy who found it. He is probably the biggest expert on pyramids on the planet. He's visited every continent except Antarctica, because you're not allowed to go there to visit the pyramids there. His PhD was in Mayan pyramids. I met him, and I'm going to do a podcast with him. And I just think this whole, and there's probably other places in the world which hold these ancient power spots. And so I found this one. So I feel my dedication at the moment is towards the Bosnian ones, because I feel that's so the earth, as the earth kind of activates, the whole, because we're connected to the earth, aren't we? The whole of our human consciousness shifts. So this is the work a lot of people going to these sacred spots. I've been going to Glastonbury for 30 years, and at the beginning of going to Glastonbury, it was dark and heavy.
Oh my God, Glastonbury is really bad. I mean,
but it's better now. Now it's much clearer.
Now it's the clearest I've ever seen it. I mean, the work is what's beautiful about land ceremony is when you work with someone a long time, you really see the results.
Yeah.
And obviously, we had someone on the show who was like, the spiritual ego to think that you can go and activate something, which I think is a fair point, and something that all of us need to keep check of.
Yeah.
But my opinion is that it's never one of us. It's many of us.
Yeah, it's a group.
Many of
Yeah,
us doing puzzle piece after puzzle piece after puzzle piece, and it's our collective effort that is reshaping and recoding and reactivating these temples that are so important for the new earth.
yeah. So I've created a transmission for the Pyramid of the Sun, which I've put to a small group of people, a couple of groups of people, because also the warning I got from the psychic was if it's activated too quickly, it will cause problems, earth problems, shifts, land shifts and everything. So it has to be done gradually. So I respected that. So it's going to a small group, two small groups of people. And I also do it in my own personal, I'm continuing doing the work. And, I do believe, from what this guy has researched these pyramids extensively, and still all the academics of the world say it's natural formation. It's not, can't be natural, isn't
When you
it?
go there, I'm sorry, but anybody that believes it's natural formation, you need to go there.
Yeah.
You need to go there, and you need to, and even if it was natural formation, that doesn't take away from the fact that it's a power. So the other thing is there are plenty of mountains that are pyramids anyway.
Yeah.
This isn't, but I think, I mean, every time I've been to the Bosnian pyramid, I've had the same experience of you, where like you go, you're in the ceremony there, and there's a massive collective shift.
Yeah.
After, there's something about the Sun Pyramid that, for me, it's a keeper of the Akashic.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm so moved by my experience there. It's still with me actually, and that we can really shift the whole planet by doing just a small group doing something so simple. And actually, the guy where I was staying, for some reason, after doing that, he just came to the group leader and said, "I want to build a big place where people can come in meditation, whatever." And he asked their advice on how does he design it? So he's building it now. He's building this kind of 12-sided meditation hall right next to the pyramid. And this guy is not spiritual. He was like, he looks like something out of the Lord of the Rings. He's emerged out of a mountain like a giant dwarf with big, massive hands, and he would hand me this rakia, homemade. I don't drink, and I'm like, I can't drink the stuff. He's going, no, good for you, and I'm like, oh. So oh my God, it's so strong. But I did it. I had to avoid him because he kept wanting me to drink this stuff, which was actually good, I think. But and this guy, no spirituality, no interest in it, is now building this thing right opposite the. So it might mean that bigger groups can go there, which I probably thinking about taking people there eventually.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's been such an honor having you on this show.
Oh, likewise.
Very, very, very inspiring, and I don't know anybody who weaves the two matrices so fluently, like to talk about politics and then alien pyramids. One show. It's got to be Steve Nobel. I want to ask you, who should we have on the show next?
Oh, who should you have on the show next? Well, I'll have to think about that and message you, because there's so many people that are worthy and good. I don't know at the moment, because a lot of people I know are in the the love and light camp, and they're doing great work. Mm-hmm. But I don't know anyone who's really talking about both matrices. And I think actually I find there's a power in talking about both, because people can relate to the 3D one, and then they can relate to the new one, because it's like, hey, there's these two things together. So I don't really know, but I'll if someone comes to mind, I'll email you.
They don't have to be of, every episode is different. We're
Okay.
not everyone on this show.
Oh, okay.
Roundtable. So they don't have to be of, they can be of any standpoint, or we regularly have people on this show we disagree with.
Good. Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah. I mean, I think it's good to have debate, isn't it? It's good to keep the debate going, and the conversation, actually, rather than debate, conversation going. So then we could come to a place of understanding, and hopefully people listening to this one will not be offended by anything that's been said, because it's not meant to offend the pro-jab or the pro-Israel or any of that. It's meant to, there's a way forward. We've all got to move forward, haven't we?
If somebody's listening and they are they haven't spoken up about something they feel like they should, and they want to because of this, what is the one bit of advice you'd give them?
Don't share anything on social media that you haven't processed yourself. It can be challenging, but if you haven't processed it, people will hear your unprocessed stuff. And that doesn't serve anyone, really. I mean, unless you're doing it to have a conversation, which is fine. But if you're coming from that polarized place, and it's better to kind of process it as far as possible. I'm sure I've had many lifetimes in Judaism because I resonate a lot with what they say. The archangels I call upon in the transmissions come from that tradition. People say you've got this connection to the Kabbalah, which I feel I do have a connection to Kabbalah. So I can speak, and that's why I feel I have a duty to speak up about it. But I'm not Jewish in this lifetime, even though I've dated I had 2 Jewish girlfriends, so I feel I've got the connection quite strongly with that tradition, But in this lifetime, here I am in England living the British lifetime, which is, I've struggled to relate to British culture most of my life because I naturally relate to Mediterranean culture, actually. I'm a Mediterranean soul. If I was in Italy or Greece, I'd be in heaven. But I'm in England because it's necessary for me to be here, even though I don't relate strongly to a lot of stuff in the culture. I'm not a football lager drinking Brit. But there are some brilliant things in British culture that there is a spiritual tradition actually in British culture you don't find so prominently in other cultures, that go back a few hundred years. That's the beauty of British culture for me. So I've completely lost the thread, Kahreela.
And if somebody wants to know how to process something they're going to share, what's your best advice?
Sit with it. It's the same thing I would tell someone who's leading groups. Don't share any story from your own life that you haven't processed, because then people will hear it's an anger or sad or something. But for me, I'm a storyteller. In workshops and retreats, I tell endless stories, even including my family, because they're funny. And I've processed it, and so I share it, and it's meant to make a point to help people move forward, But if the stories we share don't help people move forward in a positive way, then we shouldn't share them until we've processed it. And then we can use it as reference points for all kinds of things, like the story I shared about speaking to trees with my grandchildren, or walking on the seafront with my son and daughter-in-law. They're stories that I just feel they're okay with it. I'm okay with them about sharing it. I'm sure they wouldn't mind me sharing it. And other stories in my past, because we can use stories as a way to help people or as a way to hinder people. So must be aware of the kind of stories we're sharing. The ones which are still hold trauma, keep in the bottom drawer. Go to the therapist with them or healer, and then share them when you feel you're okay with them.
When you've got to the end.
Yeah, the completion. The kind of, yeah.
My prayer is that one day war is a story that we tell about how the world used to be.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That will be a few decades away, but yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
You're amazing. And how can people find you? How can they find your amazing
thesoulmatrix.com.
Amazing.
Nice and easy.
Or Instagram, Steve Nobel 101.
Mm-hmm.
Because I created an Instagram account, Steve Nobel, and then I forgot how to get into it, so I had to create another one. And they wouldn't let me go in as Steve Nobel. I had to create Steve Nobel 101. Oh, tragedy.
Well, thank you for your amazing work and your amazing heart and your amazing courage. And
we're finishing at 11:11.
I know. I was like, only Steve Nobel.
Is that deliberate? Is that deliberate?
11:11.
It's planned, guys. We planned it.
we divinely planned it. Thank you so much. May the land be with you all. If today's episode touched your heart and you want to come into greater relationship with Mother Earth, visit landtantra.com and get involved. Your truth is part of this conversation, and we would love you to reach out on socials and let us know how it landed. And if it really inspired you, we hope you share it with others. Let's add more wow to our world.